Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody today? I hope everybody's doing good. And let's see, we got a whole bunch of people here. So today's exciting. We had a big ball game last night, and I'm still wearing our Jenkins shirt. Our boys played really, really well. It was a tied ball game at the end, and we went into overtime. And unfortunately, we didn't win. But those boys do not have anything to hold their heads down about today. The Jenkins Cavaliers have done us all so proud. Well, welcome to my channel. My name is Elizabeth, and this is Hillbilly Crime. If you have not been here before, welcome. If you have, then you know exactly what we are talking about today. So there was another interview that was dropped last night, I guess, with News Nation, and this is Mickey's defense attorney. So let's listen to it and see what he's got to say.
Just crimes involving these high-level officials in this town. How does that connect back to the sheriff shooting the judge?
Well, I think the important key to remember is that earlier in this week, there was a deposition. My client was to give a deposition in the civil case. Leading up to that deposition, there's multiple witnesses, family, members of the community, folks that he worked with that saw my client in the struggle, the stress, the strain, the sleepless nights he had. He felt very much threatened about what he might say. Would he say too much that would put his family in danger? You heard Sabrina Atkins in that interview just before you switched to speak with me. She talked about the dangerous men there. So this deposition takes place on Monday. And as the week goes on, Mickey continued to be in fear that he had said something or that, further discovery in that civil case would something he would say would ruffle the feathers of some dangerous men. And ultimately, he was in fear for the safety of his wife and his daughter. And I think what you see there is the result of that.
Yeah, and just so people understand, there was this civil lawsuit ongoing. Again, I talked about the corruption and the deputies accused of having sex with inmates and all sorts of shady stuff. So there's the civil suit that's ongoing. There had already been a criminal investigation and arrests, and the sheriff was being called in for a deposition. And you're saying that he was concerned about it. Did he have information about other high-level people, perhaps even the judge, that were involved in all of this? Is that why he was so concerned?
Well, I think the bigger concern was from other people as to what he might say. And I think certainly there was information that Mickey had that he knew that other people didn't want to be made public. And if in fact they felt that some of the stuff that he said during the deposition, hurt them or exposed them for.
Now, let me stop at right here. Who did he talk about in that deposition? Think about who he talked about in that deposition. The only people that I remember him talking about in that deposition was when the other judge and his drug court worker came over to the sheriff's department and said and apologized to him, basically saying, we're sorry, we knew about this and we didn't tell you, or we heard about this and didn't tell you, whatever. Those are two completely the same things. Whether you heard it and you didn't believe it, or no, you can't. Nobody can tell me that they didn't believe it. This stuff has been going on for decades down there. The private parties that everybody knows about. I mean, there's not one person in this county that's not heard about the private parties. I mean, this has been a very well-known thing. Only people just don't talk about it to your face. They talk about it behind your back, right? And every time, like, I'm shaking. My hands are, my palms are sweating, and I'm shaking. And I have been this way for a couple of days because I myself, my own very eyes, have seen a video, an explicit video of what Sabrina would call a higher up. But I can't show it because it's so bad. You can't blur nothing out. But if there's one, there's 1,000. So this Band-Aid, I think that a lot of people are trying to put on this gaping wound. You know, like we become accustomed, or we become socialized, right? It's nature versus nurture. You grow up in an environment, or you work in an environment, and this is all that it ever is. You know, this is all you've ever seen. I remember, and I'd forgotten about this until the other day, when I had my internship at the sheriff's department. When I first started school, I was only there for like a week because they pulled my internship, fired me basically. But the deputy who did, he's the one who let me, well, Sheriff Danny Webb's the one that approved my internship, you know, and let me come in. But this other deputy, I took my Bible with me everywhere back then. Back then I was, you know, in church, full force, and twice on Sundays and Wednesday night Bible study. And my life had just been turned around so much in a good way, in a positive way. I had been in treatment for several years. You know, I had these 2 little boys, and I was being a good mom, and I had started school, and I was doing really good. And, you know, so anyway, I took my Bible with me every time I went. Well, I was only there for a week, and then the deputy comes and says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I had no idea I was being led to the slaughter. But so he's like, "Oh, we'll go in Danny's office." So we went to walk in where we can have some privacy, he said. And he went to open the door, and the door was locked. And he was like, because Danny wasn't there that day. And he was like, well, this door shouldn't be locked. Danny's not here. Well, let me go get the key. And so he left me standing there in front of the door, in front of Danny Webb's office, while he goes and gets the key. Couple minutes goes by, and he comes back with the key, or how, you know, the whole interaction there in front of the door lasted maybe a couple minutes. I don't think he was gone for a couple minutes. Just the whole thing lasted for a couple minutes. Anyway, that's it's too long of a time for what happened. So he fumbles around and finds which key it is, and he puts it in the doorknob, and he goes to open the door. And as he opens the door, there's another one of his deputies, one of his deputies with a woman. They were both locked in Danny Webb's office. Now, what were they doing? I don't know. But they knew that we were out there jiggling around on that doorknob. And there wasn't nobody opening the door. I don't think he thought that there would be somebody go get the key, and come back. So that I'd forgotten about that. But that's the kind of stuff, that was going on. And I think the woman was somebody who'd worked at the courthouse, wherever in there somewhere. But it's like that whole area down there. It's a cesspool. I also forgot about something else. So I've had several people contact me and say that they've went into somebody's office, some of these higher ups that we're talking about here. And they'd say, he'd look up and say, show me your boobs. Show me your boobs. And when I had several people telling me that, it reminded me of something. I had somebody who worked at the jail the very first time. It wasn't the first time he met me, but it was one of the first times, one of our first interactions, maybe the second or the third time I had seen him and spoke to him. And it was out somewhere. It wasn't in the jail. It was out somewhere. And I remembered he had said that to me. Show me your boobs. He didn't know I was in church at the time. And of course, I didn't do it. I just know, if you know me, I kind of have a nervous laugh myself. So when I get uncomfortable or something, I'll giggle or laugh. I have a tendency to do that. And so when you are a woman and somebody does stuff like that to you, he worked at the jail and I was trying to get in down there. I was trying to go down there and minister to the girls and stuff and have Bible study and stuff like that. But they wouldn't let me through the front door. But that's what my goal was. I had some ambition and I was trying to chase it. But when you're a female and somebody does that to you and you're wanting a job, or you really want that job, or look at Sabrina and them, then you've got these women who, what it looks to me like, are getting arrested on these rug charges. They're going to jail. And I know the playbook for how they did me when they were after me and I wouldn't voluntarily sign the papers they wanted me to sign. What did they do? They had me indicted, which, they can indict a ham sandwich if they want to. They indicted me, took me to jail. And then whenever I was released the next day, my bond conditions for my release was to cooperate with social services. That's how they get you, right? So look at what they did. And I was forced to endure a 6-month case. It wasn't until the end of it, and there was no recourse for me. There was nothing I could do. I had to serve the 6-month sentence, basically, with them invading my life and traumatized us beyond belief, me and my children, for years. Anyway, that there were lasting effects. There's always lasting effects and consequences that come when you're facing this kind of an attack, because that's what it is. And it's a losing battle. You can't win it. But that's what these women are doing, right? So they're getting arrested, getting in the system, and then they're utilizing the house arrest system, the drug court system, because look who's over top of it. And this county the state came to this judge in particular and asked him to put forth the pilot program. Wasn't that what the Senate 90 bill? Is that what it's called? I don't know. Y'all tell me if you know if it's wrong. But so the state comes, he puts this big thing together. Good intentions, right? Good intentions. You know what they say about that. When greed gets a hold of it, you know, our judge built a really good program. You know, it helped a lot of people. But when you've got a dang, what do you call it? A wolf in the hen house or whatever, they don't have a chance. These women don't, because then they're forced to go along with whatever conditions are set upon their release. And what did Jennifer Hill say? Jennifer Hill said, I told him no. I told Ben Fields no. I turned him down and I went back to jail. So the next year, when she gets in trouble and has to go on it again, she knew to go along this time or she was going to have to go right back to the jail. I've had people tell me that allegedly Ben walked outside and pulled one man right off the sidewalk and said, you look like you're high on Suboxone, and put him back in jail. Allegedly. Not everybody is I'm learning. I learned it a long time ago, but with this case, a whole lot's coming out.
What they were doing, then there certainly was a threat that Mickey perceived, one that was both perceived and real, and he was afraid for the safety of his wife and daughter.
Were they trying to pin any of these sex crimes on him? Does that play into it?
Well, I think the bigger concern that we're talking about here, I've not seen any evidence that my client was implicated in any of the corrupt sex practices that they had. I've not seen anything to that degree, but the fear was that Mickey is under oath. What will they ask him? What will he say in response? Will he talk about? You're talking about a district judges' chambers where there's a live security feed as a result of what was going on back there. That's unheard of. And it just speaks to...
did you catch that? Did you guys catch that? He said there was a live security feed. What? A live feed? Where was it feeding back to? To the DOC? Because that's the ones who put it in there, I reckon. That, if I'm wrong on that, if you know that it's not the DOC, then let me know. But from what I've been told, it was the Department of Corrections, or ain't that who the DOC is?
It just speaks to the level of things that were happening behind the scenes that these folks would very well could cause physical harm to keep secret. And Mickey was placed in this situation, and simultaneously, because of the stress, because of other factors that I don't want to get into tonight, but his mental health had taken a toll as well. And so what you see is a result of both extreme pressure that was placed upon him, the fear of what other people might do around him, and the impact of mental health as well.
Did he know something about the judge being involved in all of this and this whole sex scandal? I mean, is that why he did this? I mean, because like you said, he knew he was on camera. I mean, he was right in the chambers. Is there something he knew about this judge?
I think that certain people within that community were concerned that he would say things that will be harmful to to the people surrounding the judge and the folks in the courthouse at large. And what you see is the result of a man who believed that his wife and daughter had been or would be kidnapped or killed and hurt. And, at that point, he had not been able to get in contact with them. And he was scared for their safety. And, and that's why we said from the beginning, this is classic EED at worst, and at best, we think it's a criminal responsibility, insanity defense that's there.
Thanks for watching.
Whoa, guys. I think we are seeing the motive become more clear. Now, I mean, it's just our theory, right? It's just our theory. We're just speculating. But what we're speculating on is why Mickey did what he did, right? Well, imagine what if Mickey gets a phone call? Because Mickey said, even in the deposition, he said that they were like, I don't know, in one day he got like 400 phone calls or something. I know that's not the right number, but it was a really, really high amount of calls that he gets. And remember, I said it too. It's how we do it here. A lot of people don't call 911. I wouldn't, like if I'm fussing with my neighbor or whatever. That girl that ran in my house in neon, me and my mom and the kids were just sitting there in the living room one day, and some girl runs in my house. I didn't know who she was, and she's trying to talk. She's like, will you give me a ride? Will you give me a ride? Give me a ride. Well, I told her to go out there and get in the car. I couldn't get her out of my house. Finally, I told her to go get in my car, and I was going to get my stuff, and I'd be right out there. Well, this dummy went and got in the back of the hatch of my car. But I didn't call 911. I called Mickey on Messenger, on Facebook Messenger. It's what most people do. What were all the evidence, the discovery in Ben's case, his deposition? It was all Facebook Messenger. That's what people use here. Like TikTok is new, YouTube is, just depends on what generation you are. But the common platform that most people use around here is Facebook and Messenger. And us older generation of people, and remember, all of those people are older than me. Well, no, Mickey might be a few years younger than me. But Snapchat and stuff like that wasn't popular when we were, learning to do all this stuff. So Facebook Messenger is usually what people use. So anyway, I called him on Messenger. So that's what a whole lot of people do around here is they use Messenger. They don't call 911. And Mickey was getting a ton of calls. What if somebody called him and threatened him? What if he starts getting some threats? That would be enough. I've heard people say that, they saw him talking to himself, or they saw him acting all, unlike himself. Well, if he thought he was under investigation, and he's been right there in the courthouse this whole time. Now, no matter how much everybody likes Mickey, I'm sure he's seen a whole lot. If he hasn't been involved in something, in some aspect. But at least he's seen what's been going on. Because like I said, everybody around here knows about them private parties. Now, I don't know who put the private parties on, but I know who's always the topic of conversation when it all gets spread behind everybody's back later on in the grapevine. There's always one common denominator, and everybody that's from here knows exactly who I'm talking about. And then, what did I say the other day? Mickey goes down there to his deposition, and who went with him? Daniel Dotson, the lawyer. I didn't see him on nothing else. On none of the other depositions, it doesn't mention his name, unless I missed it. And I could have, but I don't think I did. So that was just odd to me. It was like, what do you think Mickey would have thought? I mean, I don't know. Did he think they were sending a watchdog with him? A babysitter? Because look at the context of it. The deposition. Mickey says, I don't recall, I don't recall, I don't recall 1,000 times. But then he does tell about the judge and the drug court worker coming over to his office and saying that. I didn't think that was really any kind of a big deal. But then I got to thinking, that judge, although he's always been really nice to me, anytime I've ever spoken to him, he's always been super nice to me, and my mommy loves his wife. I like his wife very well. She's a tough cookie. But his daddy was James Wiley Craft. James Wiley Craft was the mayor of Whitesburg. And he was also the prosecutor and probably a defense attorney at some point in time. But back in the 90s, there was a great big corruption investigation in Letcher County. I love Mike Watts. The only reason that the rest of them didn't take me down and literally do worse to me than what they did do was because of Mike Watts, Sr. He stepped in and helped me when nobody else would. Nobody, not a soul, would step forward to help me or even speak for me. But Mike Watts did. So I'm grateful to him for what he did for me. But his daddy was the circuit court clerk back in the 90s and also got in trouble with James Wiley Craft. They got in trouble. And James Wiley Craft got his license. He was disbarred. But then they gave it back to him right after that. Like, I don't even know why they took it from him if they were just going to give it right back to him. But then I went digging around to see why he got disbarred. And it was something, it wasn't really anything huge. Him and his secretary or whoever that was working with him, I'm not sure who it was, but they both got in trouble from what I understand, unless I misunderstood it. But him and the woman that was working for him got in trouble because they were supposed to file something on behalf of somebody else as a lawyer by a certain deadline. And they missed the deadline. So from what it looked to me, it looked like maybe they had falsified a date or something on it. I'm not exactly sure, but that's something small like that is what it was. And that, as well as I do, That ain't all. If they did a real investigation around here, like, it just blows my mind. What do people call a real investigation? What do you do? Just call some people, and if they refuse to talk to you, you just don't dig no more? Well, I just don't know. I don't know. It don't look to me like much is getting done in that on the side of law enforcement. What do you all think? It's pretty shocking, ain't it? It's pretty darn shocking. And if we don't remember, people try to rewrite history, don't they? People like to rewrite history. Yes, Lynn W. Wow, wow, wow. It just keeps getting worse, doesn't it? I don't know who said this, but I heard somewhere that if we fail to remember the past, we are destined to repeat it. That's so true. So true. Okay, so from what I understand, well, what if Mickey gets these calls threatening him? And I know if I was under that kind of pressure, I'd probably be talking to myself too. Maybe not talking to myself. I might be talking to the Lord just out loud. Listen, I'm Pentecostal. I might break out and speak in tongues. You never know. But I'm just kidding. But Mickey, if he's talking to himself and he's trying to figure all this stuff out, and he's been there 20 years, in that environment, that working environment, and these are coworkers that he's worked with for 20 years. Friendships are not always, hunky-dory. Sometimes we say things and do things to our friends. I know I have, and I regretted it so bad. And I'm so sorry if I've ever hurt you. Because it's not ever my intention. But would other people think he was crazy or that he was having some mental health, episode? Remember the preacher? Remember the preacher? Remember the video we just watched the other night of the preacher, where he gets on there and says, I've already had calls from all the major news. Who's calling you? He made that whole thing, at least I perceived it that way. He made that whole thing about him. And as soon as this happened, he rushed to Mickey's wife's side and Mickey's daughter's side. What if the narrative is Mickey's crazy? Mickey's lost his mind. He's crazy. You can't trust nothing he says. Mental illness is real, they said. How many people have said that? Because I've heard it a ton. And it's all come from down there. Mental illness is real. Mental illness is real. Yeah, it's real. Most of us live with it every single day. I know I do. I've been bipolar all my life. Shocker. I don't think Mickey's crazy. I think Mickey's in a really, really bad position because there's a whole lot more left out here. What happens when you cut the head off of a snake? 2 more grow back in its place. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the male-dominated workforce there. Yes, William DeFord. Mickey every day made a choice every day to be a good man. Obviously, he chose not. Now, I don't take up for Mickey at all. What he did was wrong. What he did was wrong. But what happens when you swim with the sharks long enough? You become a shark. Ralph Childers says, I believe the judge is dirty and needs to come out. Well, I believe that there's a whole lot of dirt. A whole lot of dirt down there. I had someone message me and tell me about they had been born and raised in Letcher County. They no longer live here. They left a couple, like 20 years ago or something. But they said that the coroner allegedly had gotten in trouble for stealing rugs, I think is what he said. And before he left, he supposedly burnt every death certificate and report that he had ever worked on while he'd been there. And he said that he had lost his brother. His brother had been red rummed, I think, and or they said something. I don't remember what he said. His brother died for whatever reason, and he said it took them years to get a death certificate because they didn't have any records of his death. And remember, that's back before the internet. So you didn't have, I know young people don't understand what life is like without the internet. But those of us older people, in mind, maybe only, but some of us older people know what it was like back then. Paper records were kept. And so, so this corruption just goes back so far. But that was an example of a coroner. And then we just recently had Marty Baker, who was our coroner. Remember Marty Baker? Marty Baker is the one who was a nurse. He was like the head nurse at ARH Hospital, one of our biggest companies in this area, and biggest contributor to the community and probably to campaigns. I don't know that for sure, but I'd say they probably do. Locally, I don't know. That's a good question. I might need to check that out. But so Marty Baker gets in trouble for whooping on a little old girlfriend that he had. And it was big news all over the newspaper. ARH just suspended him until the end of the investigation or whatever. And then they let him come right back. And he probably ended up getting a dang promotion just like the preacher did, to be honest with you. But he didn't lose his job. Oh, no, he didn't lose his job. And then he gets arrested for whooping on what's his name? Some other little old boy that lives around here. He whooped him so bad that I did a story on it. I've got a video in my videos playlist. It's probably in Letcher County playlist or corruption, both. But it's got pictures of the boy's face. So y'all go check that out if you want to. It shows his arrest, Marty Baker's arrest, has the article there, and it shows the boy's face of what Marty Baker did to him. And YouTube first wouldn't, like, they were fussing at me over putting it up because the automated thing caught it. And when I sent it in to be reviewed by a person, it was okay. They let me have it and let me put it up. But it's pretty bad. Anyway, he didn't get in no trouble. And on the newspaper articles and the Facebook, remember, everything is Facebook around here. On the comments underneath the stories, or the newspaper, the local newspapers, did it. The comments, everybody said, oh, all this corruption is going to come out now. Oh, they can't hide it now. Oh, everything's going to come out now. There was nothing happened. Nothing. Because you know why? Judge Mullins kept it down in his courtroom. And who you think his lawyer was? Who you think his lawyer was? Come on. Give you a couple guesses. I don't know that for sure. I'm assuming that's who his lawyer was. Because that's who's everybody. That's who is everybody's lawyer. All these people that keep getting out of messing with kids around here. All these Edo pays. All of these Edo pays. What happened? We're going to give you a plea bargain. We're going to give you a plea deal. And then when we go in front of the judge, we're going to recommend that he only make you serve 5 years probation on house arrest and work release. And what do? The judges go usually by what the prosecutor recommends. But he got special sentencing recommendations. Why? Special sentencing recommendations. Because it was a felony. And it was a violent felony. And the reason why they had to delay it was because of the Safer Kentucky Act going into effect. When the Safer Kentucky Act went into effect, it turned this dude's charges, and don't get me wrong, the fella I'm talking about is not Marty Baker. I'm talking about an Edo pay that just happened to be Judge Kevin Mullins' college buddy. Oh, yeah. And a big businessman here in Whitesburg. So I don't know. I just don't know, y'all. Makes me sick. Makes me sick. But we're going to have our show tonight. I'm sorry we weren't able to do it last night, but we went to the ball game and loved every minute of it. And I've still got 2,000 pictures to edit and go through. So probably won't do like our day trials for a couple days and let me get these pictures put up. And we'll have Mommy with us tonight, and we'll see what Mommy has to say about it all. I just think playing that what if game. You know, there have been accusations of like all kinds of little things, and it all kind of fits together. You think about all the money that has been going around for the rehabs, right? Well, I pulled this up. Let me see. Here it is. Let me pull this up here and show y'all something. So you've got ARC, who is being investigated by the FBI for Medicaid fraud. Well, you know, there have been people who've said like little things to me, who've told me things. One of the things that they do is very similar, kind of like, well, I don't want to compare it to that because it does do a lot of good for the community. But so allegedly, the way that ARC's hierarchy or their job opportunities, whatever, they're hiring their clients, right? And we know that abstinence had a very, very low success rate. So like when they first started, it was all at, 30-day drug-free, no MAT treatment, no medically assisted treatment. All these rehabs were abstinent rehabs, the inpatient ones. All of them that I knew of anyway. And I was pretty tucked into what all the recovery world and treatment world. I'd been to several of them myself over the years. But I'd never went to ARC. ARC wasn't around when I was in bad shape. But so they're hiring these people, and a lot of them ended up relapsing, but that's neither here nor there. So they hire, like when people would come into their treatment center, supposedly from what people have told me, they would hire them as interns, I guess kind of like a trustee at the jail. But they would hire them and call them interns. Now, I don't know how much money if they were getting paid at all. An intern usually doesn't get paid. So I don't know. They might not have even been getting paid. I have no idea about that. But what they've said was, this one person said, allegedly, they were told to go with whoever their mentor or supervisor or whoever this person was with them. And they gave them allegedly gave them a bunch of food stamp cards. And they went to, or they told them to go to the store and buy all this stuff. So they went to the store and they bought like Kit Kats and Monsters and all of these things. And then they were taking them back. Supposedly at ARC, they couldn't bring anything in with them, is what I was told. Now, when I was in rehab, we could take anything. Our families could bring us anything we needed, shampoo, whatever. But we, they didn't have nothing there that you could buy. They'd take you to the store, and if you had money, you could buy your own stuff. Like they'd take us to Walmart sometimes, or sometimes one person would be elected to go buy for everybody else, and then they would take like a list of stuff. They were pretty accommodating for stuff like that. But from what I was told, the way that ARC did it, you weren't allowed to bring anything in. They had a store or whatever. You had to buy whatever you were going to buy from them for cash. Because remember, they got your food stamp card. So they were buying all this stuff, allegedly, on these people's food stamp cards, and then bringing it back and selling it to them marked up for cash. Are you kidding me? Like, you're not taking advantage of people enough that you got to do crap like that? Like every single dollar. And remember, this is just allegedly. This is something that was told to me through somebody else. But it's been still. Show me it ain't true. I think that's why the FBI is investigating them, is because they've been a lot of accusations like that. And people started reporting it. And what did I tell you guys a long time ago? They'll get you quicker over Medicaid fraud than they will over anything. A lot of these places saw dollar signs. Anyway, let me pull this up here. Well, everybody's blowing me up. I can't find my phone. I came home last night and went to plug it up somewhere and got distracted, and now it's been eating in my couch or something. All right, we're going to go ahead and shut this down, and I'll pull this. What it is, what I was going to show you is it's a post that was put up on Facebook, and it's for a men's transitional housing facility going in Whitesburg. The former Whitesburg High School English building is in the process of being converted into a men's transitional housing facility, which will include 22 efficiency apartments where men in recovery can live for 6 to 12 months. Residents will have access to a sober living environment and connections to outpatient treatment, job training, education, and recreation. The project is today at 48% completion. So this has been in the works for a long time. I'm just now seeing it. I've been out of this loop for a long time. I gave up and walked away from it, and I just never looked back until all this started. Lord. The project is today at 48% completion, and the renovation is currently projected to finish by July 2nd, 2025. Roofing is 100% complete. Windows are 100% complete, and contractors expect plumbing, electrical, and drywalling to begin in March. So they are putting in some apartments down there. But, I don't have no problem with things. These are good programs that this community needed. It's when you hire people and you keep people. Nepotism. They hire their niece, they hire their daughter, they hire their son-in-law, their sister, their brother. They hire all these people that aren't qualified. Sadly, I've been in treatment for close to 15 years, I guess. And you had you had to have counselors. Well, you still do have to have counseling, but it used to be a lot more, and it was a lot stricter, and they forced you to do it because they charged you for it. And it was a requirement. But every single counselor that I have ever, and trust me, I've had a lot. I've had a lot. There wasn't none of them ever counseled me. Every single time I went in and was the counselor for them. And then one of them got drug tested down there at the doctor's office because she was acting so strange. And honey, she lit that test up like a Christmas lights, Christmas ornament. And she got fired. And I thought it was really, really funny. When she left, when she was there, she had her own little office. She had a little office, and she brought her stuff and she put it on the walls, like her degree. When she left her master's degree that she said she had hanging on the wall in the frame. She didn't take it with her. That got me thinking, how hard would it be to say you've got something like that and not really have it? And do they even check to make sure it's real? I mean, I would never have thought of something like that until I saw her leave her master's degree hanging on the wall and never came back for it. I don't know, man. It just questions, right? But this has been a money. It's a racket. They have built this economy. When the coal mines shut down, they built a whole new economy on recovering drug addicts. And there's a lot of people who got really, really rich. They was already rich before they got involved with all this. This rug money just gets them richer. And the more millions and millions and millions of dollars that get funneled here by who? By these politicians, these bigger politicians. Anyway, okay, I've talked enough. I got an appointment I got to go to anyway. All right, y'all. Well, we will talk tonight. You guys come back and we will see what Mommy has to think about all this. All right, we'll see you later. Bye, y'all. Peace out, girls.